We'll release her after getting close to the capital city. Another magician from the Magic Association replied. He was the one who used the metal magic against Sierra because he didn't want Sierra to continue making trouble. His magic control was very good and he didn't need to worry about hurting Sierra accidentally with his ability. As for being complained, he didn't care that much. The world was no longer the same as before and he was only using the Magic Association as a springboard. He wanted to catch up with those returnees who were famous and had strong power. Some of these returnees have long spread out their real identity, allowing others to know who they were. But some of them remained low-key and seemed to have disappeared from the surface of the earth. They would only appear occasionally. Then again, ordinary people will not be able to have access on the returnees' information. So aside from knowing their profession and the fact that they were very powerful, most people didn't know anything else. Alright, they also knew about the large-scale pattern that appeared in the sky. It was announced that the pattern will appear when someone advanced to rank 7, no matter who it is. Every continent chose to disclose this information. No way. If they didn't spread the information, it was estimated that people will panic because of the large pattern that appeared in the sky suddenly. To make sure that the order didn't get disrupted or something like that, they had to disclose the information. Alright, if that's what you want. The other magicians from the Magic Association didn't seem to care. Sierra. Iseva. Countless curses were spit out of her mouth. If it was not for the existence of the water magic blocking her mouth, these magicians from the Magic Association would definitely be able to hear her screaming and cursing out loud on the street. But they didn't care. Knowing that Sierra is a demonic magician, it was already kind enough for them not to kill her directly. None of them dared get close to Sierra. They knew very well that if a demonic magician wanted to hurt them, they might end up losing their entire magic to them too. It was not worth it. Those who could become higher than rank 3 magician within a year's time were talented people. Only a small number of them reached this rank through their family's connection and resources. The others were people who have suffered a lot in the changed world and will never do anything unnecessary. Let's hurry up. These magicians from the Magic Association ignored Sierra and picked up their pace to go towards their destination. They didn't want to stay with Sierra any longer. If it was possible, they wanted to push her away. So right now, these magicians from the Magic Association only tried their best to complete their mission as fast as possible. Once Sierra was off their hands, they didn't need to worry about anything else. Sierra was still struggling. Her eyes were chilling cold. If it was not because of these restraints, Sierra would have long fought back and, if possible, kill these magicians from the Magic Association. Her eyes were red in anger and rage. After becoming a demonic magician, she has difficulties to control her emotions. There were more than one path of a demonic magician, but each and every single one of them required sacrifices to a certain extent. They would also follow a path that was extreme and had to follow it to the very end. Otherwise, their strength would falter. Sierra naturally also followed this rule and strictly trained in terms of her state of mind to follow the path that she had chosen. But it was still not very good. By the way, how about Mr. Taylor? Mr. Taylor was still in City A base and he's Mrs. Mireya's husband. They said to leave him behind. One of the magicians from the Magic Association said calmly. He had read the content of their missions repeatedly and his expressions was a bit strange when he saw it. Because he could see that Mrs. Mireya was extremely cruel. She chose to abandon her own husband in City A base and only took Sierra away. Oh! The other magicians from the Magic Association only nodded. This is already the last days and many kinds of cruelty could be seen very clearly. Before they entered the bases, there were many people who died just for the sake of a single bread. Because it was related to their survival. Many people wanted to live. They had to protect their food and also to fight back those who wanted to take their food. It was not that easy. Swish! As the group of magicians from the Magic Association left while carrying Sierra, a figure was following from the back. A trace of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes, but he kept his presence low as he continued to follow the group in the distance. While Sierra left, Rhea and Samuel were still in the research institute. They were looking at the data in front of them and Rhea frowned. Based on the data, the giant rock golem is still active. but it's still in the state of small rock. Small rock. Even though it was said to be small rock by Rhea, the size of this giant rock golem infant was actually as big as an adult man's head. It was not very convenient to bring around and the shape was uneven. It's very much alive, but I don't have much knowledge about magic beasts' development. Rhea felt distressed. It was also because of this that Rhea basically let Mo be free in City A base or let him roam around. Because she didn't have much experience raising magic beasts and Mo has always been very self-sufficient. If anything, Mo has been following Amelia or Sophia more than Rhea in the past few months. As for the reason, Rhea strongly suspected that Mo got close to them because of their cooking skills. She didn't even understand how a wild white tiger could end up liking humans' food after being fed by Sophia and Amelia for a period of time. I can try to inquire, Samuel said helplessly as he sent message with his phone. Will it be convenient? The government had already reached an agreement with the magic associations. Even though some magicians from the Magic Association might not like this arrangement, but they have shared a lot of information. City A base is still an official base under the officials, so my father can also get a lot of information, Samuel explained. Rhea nodded blankly. It seemed that she spent too much time in the crack in the past year that she couldn't keep up with the base's development. Then again, this was still a good thing. With the bases getting better and they were willing to share information between the association, government, military, and also the province's bases, they would be able to prepare better plan to deal with the magic beasts. There wouldn't be any need for them to worry about lacking information. The Magic Association seems quite reasonable in this regards. Rhea thought about her clash with the magicians from the Magic Association some time ago and shook her head. Just some of them. They have factions inside. Ugh. No need to tell me more. I don't want to deal with them. Samuel smiled helplessly, but he himself memorized the information given to him, because he knew that there was a chance that he had to deal with the magicians from the Magic Association in the future. After all, many forcers were still thinking about their well-being and didn't care about other people. The magicians from the Magic Association were among them. These people only cared for themselves, especially those who were of high rank and lead the association. Only a few of them would still care about ordinary people when their rank was so high in the Magic Association. My father said that the giant rock golem is a special magic beast. Their nurturing period is the longest because it can reach up to 10 years depending on how many precious metals are used to be absorbed by the rocks. After that, the growth will be very quick as within a few months, they will become a giant rock golem that we can fight before, Samuel said after reading the information. His lips twitched slightly. Giant rock golem has never been a popular choice for pet or tamed magic beasts in that world. The reason is because giant rock golem was very stupid and the only advantage they had was their thick defense. But facing a powerful magic warrior like Samuel whose strong point was on his attack, these giant rock golems were really weak and didn't seem to be interesting. 10 years. Rhea was stunned. So long? No wonder Dina dared to hand over one of them to Rhea. At this moment, Rhea felt that she had lost so much when she agreed to Dina's proposition back then. Rhea looked at the giant rock golem infant and after a moment, she just sighed. Forget it. It was her own fault for forgetting that every magic beasts have their own growth cycle. The giant rock golems were indeed very strong and could reach rank 7 quickly, but she forgot that when they were still infants they did look no different from ordinary rocks. This was quite similar to camouflage. And the giant rock golem's infants were still strong in defense and their rocks were not that easy to break. It was just that they took so long to give birth to consciousness and truly able to move. At this moment, they look more like an egg. If you feed the giant rock golem's infant with more precious metals, you can accelerate the growth. Samuel looked at the data in front of him and his lips twitched. Based on the energy level, this giant rock golem's infant still needs 7 to 8 years before it could grow. Rhea. She felt that she was already poor enough because of her profession as a Runemaster, and if she had to raise another giant rock golems, Rhea felt that her pocket would be cleaner than her face. But waiting for the giant rock golem's infant to grow normally, Rhea felt that she might no longer need this giant rock golem in 7 or 8 years. After all, this giant rock golem will definitely eat a lot of her resources. A Runemaster has never been rich. Whenever they obtain some resources, They would use these resources to improve their strength almost right away. Forget it. Do you think there will be anyone who wants to buy giant rock golem infant if I sell it? Ria asked helplessly. She didn't really want to keep this giant rock golem infant anymore. Even a more promising MO was being left to roam around on his own, and Ria barely took care of that white tiger. Now that she had to feed an even more outrageous giant rock golem, Ria gave up. She didn't have enough money. Then I'll let my father buy it, Samuel said without hesitation. Huh? Are you sure you want to let your own family buy it? Ria was confused when she heard Samuel's words. This giant rock golem infant can definitely reach rank 7 in the future, but it didn't have any other advantage. To reach ranks higher than rank 7, the giant rock golems would need a lot of resources. Of course, not for the Jones family but for City A Base. Samuel smiled brightly. Don't you think City A Base lacks a beast guardian that could protect the entire city base? A giant rock golem has strong defense, which is perfect to repel relatively lower-ranked magic beasts. Ria. Awesome. To be honest, Ria was utterly speechless. She didn't expect that Samuel was thinking about taking advantage from City A Base through this giant rock golem's infant. But it was reasonable, because Ria somehow thought that Dina herself also planned to use the giant rock golem as her bodyguard after it hatched and grew. After all, the strongest point from these giant rock golems lies in their strong defense. The defense was not perfect, as someone like Samuel could still break it easily. But in front of most people, it was still useful. Even Ria would have difficulties breaking the giant rock golem's defense if that giant rock golems were of higher ranks or the same rank as her. After all, her strong point was not in her attack. What does City A Base plan to give out for the giant rock golems? Ria asked in amusement. She didn't really expect much, though. Even if they have already improved many things in order to cope up with the changes of the world, it still couldn't catch up with what these returnees could produce with just a wave of their hands. There are a lot of things that the Research Institute has been making in the recent years, Samuel said calmly. You can pick any of them and I don't think they'll mind. Let me get the list for you. Research Institute? Ria looked at the door thoughtfully and asked, do you also include things that Ruby made in the past few months? If she was not wrong, there should be a research conference some time ago if there was no second earthquake. After all, Ria remembered that Ruby has been anticipating this research conference for a long time. And the fact that Sophia left before this research conference would definitely make Ruby sad. Thinking about Sophia, Ria frowned. After her return, Amelia had already told her that Sophia and Stephen left City A Base because of the Carson family. This is their family's internal conflict, so it was not convenient for other people to meddle in it. If it was not because Ria knew that Sophia left voluntarily, she really wanted to set up a formation around the Carson family members and let them suffer. Yes, but not the one that she will present in the research conference, Samuel replied. It couldn't be mass-produced and the base didn't really have any stock in our hands. The research that Ruby did was remarkable and Samuel was also amazed. He had to say that there were many talented people all over the world and having Ruby worked in one field was very good. These people were able to showcase their abilities when they were given the opportunity to shine. What did she make? Ria asked curiously. Aside from the time when she gave a batch of dark element magic beasts corpses to Ruby for her research, Ria had never interfered in Ruby's research. Besides, she didn't want to experience Ruby's style lecture again. The massive amount of professional knowledge term made her dizzy, and Ria didn't think that she would be able to survive should she listen to those things. It's better for her not to ask. Mana container based on the dark element magic beasts, Samuel replied. Ria's eyes lit up when she heard that. It's very useful. Many materials on the green planet was not suitable to use mana, and both Samuel and Ria didn't know what else to replace them. After all, the things that existed in that world were different from the things here. They couldn't really expect to produce something that was exactly the same. If they were asked about the main composition of those materials, neither Samuel or Ria would be able to answer, because the two of them didn't really study those things. So they had to rely on the researchers to analyze these things and come up with some things. At most, the two of them could only come up with some ideas that might be able to point the direction for them. Indeed, Samuel chuckled. They're thinking about preparing some special energy guns that could last longer with the materials that she researched. Unfortunately, it seems that the raw materials are not that easy to find. Dark element magic beasts. Ria nodded thoughtfully. There are not many magic beasts of dark element. After all, the composition of elements for these magic beasts still followed the percentage like humans. The most common was naturally the standard 5 elements. Any other elements aside from that rarely appeared in both humans and magic beasts. Samuel nodded. The report stated that she could obtain her materials from you. It said that she had a space storage scroll full of dark element magic beasts, given by Ria. Ria! She forgot about that. In order to help Ruby with her research, Ria did hunt a lot of dark element magic beasts. Since she herself didn't look favorably upon those magic beasts, and had no specific uses for the magic beasts, she simply tossed them all to Ruby, allowing her to do whatever she wanted with them. After that, she did try to ask Ruby about her experiment. But she couldn't understand anything. Just thinking about it made Ria helpless. I thought she had already used up those magic beasts' corpses that I gave to her. It's been such a long time, Ria muttered. The Research Institute is an independent department and Ria was not considered an official of City A base. Even though they could ask her for help when encountering trouble such as the magic beast's tide. But most of the time, they would not bother with Ria in the slightest bit. After all, even Samuel was not asked to work. They have their own business that they had to do. She might be using them sparingly or do research on almost all parts available, Samuel said quietly. He had seen the researchers worked and they have the principle of not wasting anything. Ria nodded helplessly. I guess I'll have to hunt some dark element magic beasts for her next time. Don't overdo it. Take a look at the list and pick what you want first. If you're curious about her research, the conference is tomorrow. Then I'll attend. Okay. Ria selected some things from the list that Samuel gave to her and sighed deeply. She had to admit that the researchers were really creative and they made many things. Some of them looked quite interesting. Anyway, even if they were not very useful for her, she found them quite novel and might be able to use it for something else. Long distance away, Sierra's location. The speed of these magicians from the Magic Association was by no means slow. They had no intention of staying behind and naturally picked up their pace in order to bring Sierra to the capital city at the fastest speed possible. Naturally, Sierra was still bundled by several magic spells. They didn't release her until it was nighttime and it was time to eat dinner and rest. Eva! Sierra cursed them all when she was released, but none of them cared for her and simply let her be. You'll be punished, Sierra yelled and then moved away from these magicians from the Magic Association. She had heard them saying that her mother didn't care for her and didn't even give any specific order for them to protect Sierra. Their task was simply to bring Sierra to the capital city where the Turin family was located. Heh! One of the magicians from the Magic Association sneered. Rest, young miss of the big family. If you don't have enough energy to go on your own, we don't mind carrying you like today again. Using magic for almost an entire day did exhaust them mentally, but it was better than listening to Sierra cursing them all day long. Moreover, Sierra's pretentious manner made them feel sick. The extreme nature of the demonic magician was very strong on Sierra, making others feel uncomfortable when they come into contact with her. Do you want to fight? The magicians from the Magic Association raised his hand and ready to chant again. Both magicians and demonic magicians needed to chant to use their magic. And Sierra's chanting speed was nothing remarkable. She was too lazy to train and those lines were extremely embarrassing. Even though some magicians from the Magic Association would be able to use magic without chanting through using their mana fluctuation something, only those who were talented and had working enough would be able to do it. Someone who lays around like Sierra was not included among them. She was too lazy to learn. So if there was truly a battle between the magicians from the Magic Association and Sierra, she will definitely lose. No! Sierra was angry and rushed out to pick a room on the side. There were still ruins between the city bases that hadn't been cleared up yet. After all, this is a big project and not many people could spend the people and resources needed to clean up the areas. It was already good enough if they didn't ignore those magic beasts. The cleanup so far was only cleaning up the ruins around the bases, and for areas further away, they only dealt with the magic beasts as appropriate. She's leaving. Will she be fine alone? Another magician from the Magic Association was worried when he saw Sierra was getting further away. They had checked and cleaned up the areas, but some magic beasts were smart enough to set up an ambush or sneak in. Once these magic beasts reached rank 4, their intelligence and method soared. Even though most of them were still relatively stupid compared to humans, but dealing with them were no longer so easy. She's already an adult. The other magicians from the Magic Association sneered. Another magicians from the Magic Association shrugged. If she needs help, she can yell or scream. With her skills as a demonic magician, most lower-ranked magic beasts are not her opponent. The areas around City A base are still relatively safe, so she should be fine. Really? The second magicians from the Magic Association who spoke looked at the first magician and rolled his eyes. If you're so worried about her, you can go and accompany her. Just remember to be prepared for her making a fuss. From the way Sierra has been cursing them, these magicians from the Magic Associations would not be surprised if she made a fuss and troubles once being approached. They didn't want to interact with Sierra more than necessary as needed in their mission. It was too troublesome. Forget it. The first magicians from the Magic Association's lips twitched. He didn't to provoke that little ancestor either. If they were to approach Sierra and the latter started to make trouble, it was not worth it. They already had to be a nanny by escorting Sierra to the capital city. There was no need to babysit her. Clack. Outside, Sierra kicked the stones on the road in anger. She swore that when she met with her family members, she will file a complaint against these magicians from the Magic Association. They didn't know any courtesy and were extremely rude. If it was not because Sierra didn't dare to travel on her own, she would have long left these magicians from the Magic Association and go on a journey to the capital city on her own. Sadly, she didn't dare. If she were to travel on her own, the powerful magic beasts might kill her. When I meet my mother, I will ask for more resources and method so that I can advance quickly. Sierra pursed her lips. Training is too tiring. It would be more convenient if there was some methods that could allow her to grow stronger without having to do anything. As Sierra was daydreaming, she suddenly felt pain in her heart. Stab. Asterisk warning. The content below might not be suitable for children under the age of 13. If you're under this age, please read with caution. Contain cruel murder method and description. Asterisk. Cough. Having reached rank 3 as demonic magician, despite most of it was due to her dumping resources for herself, Sierra's body still reacted instinctively when she sensed pain and launched fierce counterattack. Slash. Slash. Magic wind blades formed around Sierra, cutting off in various directions, trying to hit whoever stabbed her just now. Cough, cough. Sierra raised her head, and what she saw was the bloodied figure of a middle-aged man in front of her. She wanted to scream, but the next moment, she felt pain on her neck, and her hands quickly covered up her neck. Blood spurted out. The middle-aged man had bloodshot eyes, and his eyes were filled with hatred when he looked in Sierra's direction. He. Sierra tried to speak, but the cut on her neck prevented her from speaking. It was obvious that this man had cut off her vocal cord, preventing her from having the chance to speak, and asked for help. After all, these magicians from the Magic Association were still a distance away. Oh, they were a bit far away. Because Sierra was in bad mood after being treated roughly by these magicians from the Magic Association, she walked further away from them. Her intention was so that they would not disturb her and made her day even worse. But this was used by her enemy to kill her. Damn it! Sierra struggled to gather her mana, but she found that her mana was disorderly and couldn't be commanded. It was leaked out of her body, spilling out without any rules whatsoever and blend into the air. Her eyes were filled with fear and horror. Ever since she became demonic magician, this was the first time Sierra experienced the feeling of weakness. It was unpleasant. And not only did she feel weak, she also felt her strength was disappearing, as fast as she gained her strength. Sierra's expression was not very good right now. As blood gushed out, even if she was trying to kill her opponent in front of her, there was basically nothing that she could do. Who? She struggled to come up with one word. In this dark place, she couldn't recognize the other party. But he didn't seem to care at all. His eyes were filled with hatred as he watched Sierra slowly lost her breath. Cough. His body was filled with injuries from the counterattack that Sierra gave to him, but he didn't care at all. When he came here to kill Sierra, he was prepared to die along with her. He hated this woman very much. You caused the death of my wife and son. The man, Mr. Thompson, whispered in a low voice. They had no hatred whatsoever, and his wife didn't even care that much about Sierra, the daughter of her first husband with another woman. Even though it was because of this woman that caused her family to fall apart. But Mrs. Thompson understood that the main fault lies in Sierra's mother. So she would not vent her anger on Sierra. But who would have thought that Sierra suddenly set her target to her son and even caused him to suffer so much? In the end, Mrs. Thompson died in a scuffle with Sierra. And there was nothing that Mr. Thompson could do but to watch as his wife died, and then his son followed soon afterwards. He hated Sierra. Hated her so much for destroying his family. Unfortunately, Sierra has the Turin family and these magicians from the Magic Association protecting her. Even if he wanted to kill her, he had to find the perfect chance. Now, the chance has come. He succeeded. Seeing that Sierra had completely lost her breath, Mr. Thompson laughed out loud and then stabbed the knife once more. He was injured and he knew that he wouldn't live long. So he will just use this chance to vent his anger. Stab by stab came raining down, and when the magicians from the Magic Association finally arrived, the two people had long turned into corpses. And there was even a magic beast gnawing on their bodies. Ah! It was chaos. And these magicians from the Magic Association all knew that they would definitely be blamed by the Turin family for not being able to protect Sierra, who told her to run around in the middle of the night. So in the end, they could only report it as it is. Of course, these magicians from the Magic Association definitely put on a lot of embellishment and put all the blames on Sierra, who made them hated her. Anyway, all magicians from the Magic Association came to consensus that if there's anyone to blame, that would be Sierra. They didn't do anything. Who made Sierra basically offended all the magicians from the Magic Association who were present on the scene. They were prepared to blame her thoroughly. City A base, Ria's side. At this moment, Ria had no idea about Sierra's situation. Even if she knew, she had no time to care about the other party. After all, Ria didn't like Sierra and didn't want to know anything about the other party. The Turin family? Since they still relied on the magicians from the Magic Association, then Ria would ignore them. Anyway, they were not in City A base and had no power to touch her. She was more interested in various gadgets and little things that the Research Institute had come up with. These things were not very useful for Ria, who had various runes to help herself in daily life. But for ordinary people who didn't have any magic, these were definitely useful things. The most interesting one is definitely the fact that there were many rune masters in City A base who could engrave on the magic cores directly. I didn't expect you to have trained them to this extent. Ria was looking at the magic core in her hand with a complicated look. When she first showed the method and even recorded the video on how to engrave runes to the magic core, she didn't expect that they would be able to replicate it within a year's time. After all, it was impossible for ordinary rank 1 rune master to be able to do this. Aside from Ruben, there are only 3 people who could do it, Samuel said and sat down in the dining room. This was already morning, and after the 2 people rested, they felt much better. Anyway, there was no urgent matter and they should also relax as appropriate. Upon reaching rank 7, even if there was some pressure to advance again, but it was not as tense as before. So Ria and Samuel has actually been living a much better life after they reached rank 7. Of course, that was before the second earthquake. Right now, Ria could take a break because all cracks were either sealed or had someone else guarding. But it wouldn't be for long. Based on her own estimation, the seal wouldn't last long, so they would have to pay a visit to the crack later. Well, that was for later. Ria didn't want to think about these things. She was more interested in these small things that happened while she was away. Their work is pretty good. Ria chuckled and put the magic core aside. The one she held in her hand was the water magic core, so once she put it inside the container, It started to spill out more water until the entire magic core was submerged, and then it stopped. The size of these magic cores were also relatively small, just like pebbles. So carving on the surface of the magic cores wouldn't be that easy. After all, they had to have perfect control on their own mana to be able to achieve the result they wanted. These magic cores have been commonly used in various devices, Amelia interjected from the side. She has been in City A base for longer than Samuel and Ria. Our bathroom has also been equipped with these magic cores for bathing. I don't know that. Ria was stunned. I don't know either. Sean, who had just entered the dining room for breakfast, was stunned when he heard these two people's words. His expression turned strange and he asked, "Did you not take a bath, brother? But you don't smell." Eft. Amelia nearly laughed out loud if it was not because of her brother's black face. After all, it was so funny to be accused of not bathing by Sean. Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones had speechless expression as they looked at their youngest son. Can't he be more serious? Sean, do you want more training? Samuel asked with a sneer. It seemed that this brat really did need more lesson. The previous training plan has to be doubled. Sean's face turned pale. No, brother, I didn't mean it. Even if you don't take a bath, you're definitely the most handsome. Bletek. In the end, Samuel had to hit Sean's head in annoyance before this brat could say anything more outrageous. Ift. Ha ha ha. Ria was already laughing out loud due to the siblings' antic. She didn't expect that these two people could still be so funny like this. Why are you also laughing? Didn't you hear him also accusing you for not taking a bath? Amelia, who was still restraining her laugh, poked Ria's hand. It doesn't matter. Ria chuckled. First of all, I have water element and I can conjure water by myself. Secondly, there's something called cleaning spell among the daily life's magic spell that could be used even by half-baked magicians who hadn't reached rank 1 yet. Magic has never been something that only used in battles and war. It fully encompassed various aspects in life, and Ria loved to use magic in various matters. One of them was naturally the cleaning magic spell. To be honest, Ria had already used this magic spell for such a long time. When she first came back, this was her favorite magic spell. Because with this magic spell, she didn't need to spend so much time taking a bath or cleaning various utensils after using it. This was the most efficient magic spell that she ever learned. Cleaning magic spell? Sean, who was rubbing his head after being beaten by his brother, looked confused. How come I have never heard of it? Sean, did you forget to check the magic spells list? There's the common household magic spell that you can learn, Amelia said with unbearable look on her face. She felt that her younger brother was truly unreliable. How come her older brother was very good at every sense, but Sean looked like a child who hadn't grown up yet? He was already in his 20s. Ah! Sean quickly took out his phone while squatting on the ground to check. Samuel shook his head at his younger brother's antics. I have already reported the common household magic spell, such as the cleaning spell, the sparks fire spell, and so on. For these common magic spells, you only need to have the qualification to be able to sense mana and use it. Of course, the power will be lesser if there was not enough mana. But this was actually good enough for most people who didn't need to use magic to attack others, but only for daily chores. Cleaning spell is the most efficient one, because it could easily clean up most dust and stains. Of course, this would not work for anything that had seeped into one's body, such as poison or something like that. For something like this, they would need purification magic spell that belonged to the light element magicians. How come I never know about this? Sean looked like he was doubting his life. Mr. Jones sighed when he saw his son's unreliable appearance. Your brother had already said this a long time ago. You're the one who didn't pay attention to him at that time. Sean showed an awkward smile when he heard his father's words and silently rubbed his cheek. Who could blame him? When his brother suddenly got obsessed in learning martial arts, many people were still thinking that Samuel was crazy. They even felt that he was kicked in his head by Donkey to come up with something like this. But as Samuel's strength improved and he could show magic and so on, Mr. Jones started to make a lot of planning for their family, because having such power in the modern world would be difficult. There might be some people with unkind intention towards them. After they found out that the world changed, they decided to cooperate with the government and still retain their own autonomy. After all, Mr. Jones didn't want to have all the initiative in his hand be taken away by others. So they had to work hard to make sure that they could still have the leading when talking about cooperation and so on. Does all returnees could use these magic spells? Amelia took out her phone and showed the list to Ria beside her. Samuel looked at his sister unkindly. If Ria wanted to take a look, he could also show her. There was no need for Amelia to be the one to step forward. Amelia felt chills on her back, and after seeing her brother's expression, Amelia was speechless. Is her brother so jealous? Didn't he already know that her relationship with Ria was extremely good? Yes. Ria took a quick glance at the magic spell lists and nodded. She could use all of those magic spells, and she believed that other returnees would be the same. Magic is very prevalent in that world that ordinary people could also use magic. But they could only use these simple magic spells because for other things, they will use various tools developed with magic or just like us before technology. I see. Amelia nodded with understanding, and then she looked at Ria teasingly. And you're still trying to hide that you've been to another world before. Ria looked helpless. Mel, you know that it's not convenient to say these things. Otherwise, she would not have claimed that she obtained some kind of inheritance when she first showed her magic. Because she knew that her experience was a bit bizarre and it wouldn't be easy for others to believe her, even if she could show magic. And it was only later on did Ria know that there were so many returnees from that world. She came to understand from the message when she reached rank 7 that these returnees were set up on purpose. But there was still no answer as to who sent them. It was just that message did contain some clues. The problem is that they didn't really want to think about it too much because their guess was a bit incredible. Don't worry, I know that. Amelia chuckled and then leaned against Ria's shoulder as she browsed these magic spells list. But are these things really necessary to learn? She felt that these magic spells looked quite easy, but with the convenience that technology brought to them, she had never thought about using it. After all, she was more used with various things that was commonly used instead of these magic spells. Ria blinked her eyes and then shook her head. No, but I'm more used to use these household magic spells. Besides, they can also exercise your mana control. When she first came to that world, Ria was naturally not used to these household magic spells. But after some time, she felt their convenience and simply used it for almost everything in her life. In that way, her life has become inseparable from mana and magic. Even until now, Ria still felt that using magic spells was extremely convenient. Because of that, she continued to use these household magic spells. Even after coming back to this world, Ria still didn't change this habit and instead often forgot to use various things. It took her a few weeks to get used to the things in her dormitory again back then. And after the world changed, there was truly no point in her using those household appliances and simply switched to use magic for almost everything. Even the simple cleaning will use magic spell for convenience. Can you exercise your mana control with these? Sean got up and sat down on his chair. At the same time, he pulled his chair away slightly from his older brother. He didn't want to be beaten up by his older brother for the second time of the day. Yes, even the simplest cleaning magic spell required you to control your mana and then use it against your target. Ria smiled in amusement. Teach us. Amelia was suddenly interested. Okay. So, their morning breakfast turned into a small teaching session about household magic spells by Ria to Amelia and Sean. Samuel was on the side, taking out his laptop to finish some works. One had to say that even until now, these electronic appliances were still widely used in this world. If one didn't know better, they would think that the world had never changed. Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones left early. The former went to work in his office and the latter went to have fun with the other middle-aged women in the base. They have their own things to do and their children would not bother them. It'll be the time for the research conference by Ruby. Don't you want to see it? Samuel reminded when he saw the three people were still busy. Seeing how Ria was happily explaining things to Amelia and Sean, he felt that it was quite entertaining and he didn't want to disturb it. Unfortunately, they still have some other business. Ah, you're right. Amelia looked at the time and stood up. Let's go and see how good Ruby is. Ruby has been very confident in her research and told the two of them to come several times. So now that they have time, they will naturally come to her presentation and see her research's result. I'm not going. Sean shook his head repeatedly. He didn't understand anything from these researchers, and his education's level in the past was not very good either. Even though he was not that stupid, but for some subjects he just couldn't do it. So his result was relatively average. Considering that he had the Jones family backing him, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones didn't force him to study much and let him do what he wanted. Anyway, it's more important for him to be happy with what he was doing than to suffer doing what he didn't like and didn't have much talent of. You have to train. I have already informed the general about it, Samuel said unhurriedly. Sean's expression cracked. Brother, can I stop training? Yesterday, the general trained him until he almost fainted on the training ground. When he asked for the general to lessen the training and stop torturing him so much. Unfortunately, the general said that it was his brother who ordered the training. Thinking about his brother's fierce methods, Sean felt that he would never be able to get out without finishing the training. You're still too weak, and training with the military will be good for you. The base has already agreed on cooperation with the military for a long time, so you don't have to worry about not being able to train well, Samuel said with a smile on his face. The smile looked kind, and coupled with Samuel's handsome face, it could definitely charm most girls. Unfortunately, the one he faced is his younger brother. And knowing his brother well, Sean's face showed infinite despair. He wouldn't be able to escape from the training. With his current strength, it would be very easy for Samuel to arrange someone to pick him up and then send him to the training ground. It was so miserable. Good luck, Sean. Your sister supports you. Amelia gave a thumbs up to her younger brother. Sister, if you can stop snickering, I can believe 10% more of your words. Sean looked at Amelia with resentment. Don't think that he couldn't see that his sister's shoulder was shaking and that her mouth was upturned. She was definitely holding back laughter. Definitely. Knowing his sister's urinary nature, Sean was filled with resentment and wanted to beat up his sister. Unfortunately, Sean knew very well that he was definitely the person with the weakest strength in the entire family. Even if his father and mother might not be of higher ranks than him, but how dare he beat up his parents? It's impossible. He could only set his target on his two siblings. It was just, neither of these two people were weak, and after being trained for a long time, how could it be possible for them to lose against him, a half-baked professional who only trained occasionally? Why only 10%? Amelia complained. It's good that I can trust you more by 10%. Sean rolled his eyes. Who didn't know what kind PF person Amelia is? She definitely just wanted to see the fun when she heard about the training he had to suffer from. It has always been like that. But I feel that it's great my brother can become stronger. Amelia grinned. Otherwise, I'll feel that you're too weak to be beaten up. Sean's eyes widened. Listen, is this really something a sister should say? He really wanted to kick his sister out and challenge her for a battle. But thinking about their last spar where he realized that his sister had grown even stronger than him, Sean became timid once again. Damn. Whoever want to be beaten up by Amelia can step forward. His sister has gone further and further into the path of a violent magic warrior. Her physical strength was really strong that among their small group, only Arnold could defeat her. And how could Arnold bear to beat Amelia up? That guy has been trying to pamper Amelia from left to right and declared his sovereignty everywhere. It was as if they wouldn't know he is Amelia's boyfriend. They have been fed with dog food whenever they saw these two people. For Sean, he really didn't want those blinding dog food. Whoever wanted can take it. He definitely didn't want to. Too sour. Sean's brain turned quickly and he looked at his older brother. Brother, it seems that Amelia also wants to train with me. Humph. He couldn't defeat Amelia, but couldn't he pit her back? Anyway, she wouldn't die. At most, they would be too tired to even scold each other. Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief. Nonsense. Brother, don't listen to his words. I definitely didn't want to. I have my own training schedule. What a joke. If she had to train with Sean under Samuel's arrangement, how could she have time to spend with Arnold? she would be dead tired. Who didn't know that her brother is a person who's extremely cruel to himself and others? Just look at his training regime. It was definitely not something for human being. Of course, he would not dare to say this in front of his brother in case he thought that she was scolding him. She was definitely praising him. It's not scolding. Amelia saw Samuel looking in her direction and her scalp was numb. Her brother wouldn't be thinking of sending her to train with Sean, right? She can train with Arnold and her training result will definitely be better, Samuel said calmly. For this slightly love-brain younger sister, Samuel felt that it would be better to throw her to Arnold. At least, when she saw him, she would definitely have the motivation to keep going and train harder. If Samuel arranged other training to Amelia, there was no doubt that she might end up lays around. Anyway, training's result will be better when they were in good mood. When Amelia was being forced to train, she would have rebellious mentality. That's great, brother. Amelia laughed out loud happily and then she quickly stood up. I have a date. An appointment to go with Arnold to see Ruby's research, so I'm going now. After that, Amelia rushed out at the fastest speed possible from the mansion as if she was afraid that her brother will change his decision if she went any slower. She just wanted to stay with Arnold rather than with her devil-like older brother. Ria chuckled in amusement when she saw Amelia's face. She had long known about Amelia's fear towards Samuel. Of course, there were also respect and love, but it was obvious that Amelia feared Samuel more than the other two feelings. Then again, Amelia also knew that her brother doted on her. So even if she made trouble, her brother will still tolerate her and gave her a lot of convenience. Of course, she was still sensible to a certain degree. Otherwise, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones would be the first one to step up and beat her up to be a decent young lady. Brother, you're really partial, Sean murmured with heartbroken expression. He felt that his brother was really too partial to his younger sister. If only his brother was willing to let him train with his girlfriend, it would have been much better. Unfortunately, his girlfriend's ability was leaning towards support and healing. She herself also didn't like to fight, so she has been staying in the hospital for a long time. In this way, Sean usually trained by himself and then went to the hospital to pick her up. In that case, you can train twice the amount today. Samuel sneered. No, brother. I'm sorry. In the midst of Sean's wailing, he was taken to the military's training ground by the soldiers whom Samuel had called in advance. No matter how much Sean didn't want to, he knew that he had no other choice but to follow his brother's arrangement to practice. Ria looked at Sean, who walked away dejectedly while she and Samuel also departed to the research institute with a smile on her face. Those who didn't know will think that you're torturing your brother. Don't worry, old neighbors all knew that brat's nature, Samuel said lightly with a hint of amusement in his tone. Clearly, he understood his younger brother's personality very well. Ever since he was young, he had already caused a lot of dramas. Well, not only Sean. Even Amelia was the same. These two pair of siblings were really troublesome. Samuel's lips twitched slightly when he remembered the troubles that these two people caused for him in the past. They were definitely not some well-behaved children and often made troubles. Thankfully, the one who bare the brunt the most was his father and not him, because he's only their older brother while their father is their elder. Your relationship with your brother is really good, Ria chuckled. Unlike her and her step-siblings, they basically hated each other so much that the other party wished for her death. As for Ria herself, she just wished those people could stop bothering her. While it was not impossible for her to make a move herself, but Ria didn't really want to stain her hand with blood of her own relatives. It was also because of this that, aside from beating them up and let them suffer through her special runes, Ria didn't do anything else. As long as they kept on living their own lives without bothering each other, Ria was too lazy to take revenge on her own. Isn't it more fun to see they making enemies and then let their enemies deal with them? That way, she didn't have to do anything to achieve the result that she wanted. They're also your siblings now, Samuel said lightly with a smile on his face. Ria was stunned and then she blushed. She understood what Samuel meant, but she couldn't really treat them as her real siblings. Then again, Ria didn't even know what real siblings usually do with each other. She never truly had a sibling whom she could care from the bottom of her heart. The siblings she knew in the past were B***stards who only knew how to take advantage of her and so on. With the education from their parents. They also hated Ria so much that they would not hesitate to make trouble for her. So rather than siblings, they were more like enemies. It's too early, Ria muttered. It's not early. Samuel looked at Ria deeply. Ria saw Samuel's gaze and felt panicked for a moment. She stood up and rushed to the door while saying, "It's time to watch Ruby's research presentation. I don't want to be late." Seeing Ria running away, Samuel laughed heartily. Her red cheek when she was embarrassed was really cute, and Samuel felt that it was good. He stood up and also followed behind Ria. The research conference or presentation or gathering, whatever it was called, was held in the morning at 9 a.m. Most researchers were already old, and while they have relatively regular schedule, many of them often stayed up late at night in order to complete their experiments and so on. Even after the world had changed, they could never change this habit of theirs. So in order to take care of their sleeping time, the conference couldn't be held early in the morning and had to be appropriately adjusted. Amelia and Arnold were already there, waiting for Samuel and Ria. "I thought that you won't come out so quickly." Arnold arched his eyebrows when he saw that these two people were not that far behind Amelia. "It's better to hurry up and not make any delay," Samuel replied lightly. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go in." Yes. The two girls were more curious than anything else, though they would soon regret their decision to come here. "I can't understand anything." Amelia had a blank look on her face when she heard the researcher started to explain the matter. All she could understand was the word cell, regeneration, mana, and magic. As for others, sorry, she couldn't understand any of them. Ria smiled bitterly in response. She also couldn't understand anything that they said, which made her wonder if she had made a mistake or something like that. It seemed that they have wasted their years of studying. It was really miserable. "Don't worry, Mel. I don't understand either," Arnold said in consoling tone. He was not very good in biology, and many of these researchers' knowledge had reached the point that it would not be possible for students to learn. So while he listened to their words, he was in the state of half listening and half not. "No wonder Sophia didn't seem to mind that she couldn't come," Amelia complained. "Ria?" Indeed, if the research content was something like this, even she would have difficulties understanding it. Sophia might be in similar department as Ruby, but the content they learned over the years were still very different. It was basically impossible for the lazy student Sophia, who often skipped classes in the past, to follow the entire research's theory by other professors here. After all, these people were all professionals. On the other hand, they were students who hadn't even had the chance to graduate. Not that it seemed necessary anymore, though. For the 24-year-old Ria, it was more important for her to study various runes and so on than finishing her study. "Oh, that's Ruby. She's dressed up so casually." Amelia saw Ruby and was excited. If it was not because she didn't want to disturb the other party, she would have long come forward and greeted her enthusiastically. After all, it was rare to see Ruby in this attire, and the serious look on her face made Amelia thought about the days when they took exams in the past. Ruby would look extremely serious, while she and Sophia, well, there was no exaggeration to say that the two of them basically had dark circles under their eyes because they crammed various information overnight in order to pass the exams. They were just like many other students who only went to university for the sake of the diploma. But they didn't care too much how much they have studied. Cough. This was not a good behavior, so other people should not casually imitate them. "She wore high heels," Ria commented when she saw Ruby's attire. It was indeed rare to see Ruby wore high heels like that when she was about to give presentation like this. "Because high heels makes you look more powerful." Amelia raised her chin proudly. "You look taller than men and you can look down at them. It's interesting to see these guys look devastated because they're not as tall as us women." In terms of height, Amelia and Ruby were above average among women. Even though they were not as tall as most guys who were above 180 meters, they could still be above 170 as long as they wore the appropriate high heels. Ria looked at her friend speechlessly. "I don't understand why you want to look taller than them." "You don't understand. It's a kind of pleasure that you can look at them from above." Amelia shook her head and then patted Ria's shoulder. Of course, for a short person like you, it's nothing more than a pipe dream, so you shouldn't expect too much. Ria, if Amelia is not her friend, she would have long beaten up the other party for underestimating her height like that, even though Ria knew that she was considered short among women. But there was no need to point it out so blatantly, all right? I can fly, Ria said stubbornly. Anyway, if she couldn't be taller than them, she could still fly above them and looked at them from above. Anyway, the principle is the same, right? Biffed. Amelia saw Ria's stubborn look and clutched her stomach in amusement as she crouched on the side, her shoulders shaking so badly that it seemed unstoppable. It was obvious that Amelia felt Ria was so funny right now and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ria's face turned dark and she pinched Amelia's waist. Wait, don't. It's ticklish. Stop laughing first. The two people were messing around while trying to keep their voice low. Well, Ria had already set up a sound insulation so that the other people couldn't hear their voices. But their body language clearly told others that they were not listening properly. Thankfully, they were sitting in the private room on the second floor. Even though it was impossible not to attract attention if they were a bit louder, the sound insulation was already pretty good even before Ria set up the formation. They're really lively. Arnold looked helpless when he saw the two girls were laughing and chatting with each other. They didn't look like they were here to listen to the research presentation but to play around with each other. Isn't it good? Samuel chuckled and his eyes were gentle. Seeing their laughter and lively look, isn't it the reason why they have been working hard to protect City Base? Because only when the city base is safe that the people could live happily. Instead of looking like zombie because of devastation, being able to laugh so freely meant that they have been living well. This is the purpose of the base. Not only to protect these people's lives but also to protect their happiness, allowing them to live in contentment until the end of their lives. Yes, it's good. Arnold smiled back. Life is short and they should work hard to achieve their goal instead of wasting their time, doing nothing until the rest of their lives. After all, youth is about trying on various new things and experimenting with whatever interests them. So what if it didn't work? They could try again and again other methods that they could think of. Right now, they were working hard for the sake of themselves and the people around them. They couldn't afford to fail, but it didn't mean that they couldn't enjoy their lives. After all, living so hard all the time will be difficult. A balanced life of both hard work and enjoyment should be the best. It was just that this would not be so easy. After all, many people had to work hard in order to achieve a good life because if they didn't work hard enough, the income they made would not be enough to stuff their teeth. It was the same for both Samuel and Ria. They were so busy that they barely had enough time to take care of themselves. Now that they have enough time, it was fine to have some fun here. Anyway, Samuel was happy to see Ria playing happily with his sister. All right, it's time for Ruby's turn. When they saw Ruby stood up, the two women tacitly agreed to stop playing around with each other and focused on Ruby. Even if they might not be able to understand everything that Ruby said, but at least they had to listen. Ruby smiled as she went to the stage and started to explain her research's result. There are a lot of dark element magic beasts, but among them, their magic cores have special properties that could absorb other magic and mana. I found this phenomenon interesting and had already conducted experiments. Aside from the magic cores, there are also many other body parts that are worth paying attention to. For example, the tendons and then Ria and Amelia. As expected of Ruby, they couldn't understand anything. The two of them had a bitter smile on their face, but they still listened. Anyway, they usually would run away when Ruby started her preaching lecturing mode because they couldn't understand. Today, they were here to support Ruby, so they will support her. In conclusion, this material could hold mana comparable to a 5th-rank magician, and then it can be drawn out for other uses. The extraction speed is still relatively longer, requiring 2 full seconds to be fully drawn out, so improvement in this aspect is necessary. The research conference would not go into details into her every experiments. After all, there were many people who wanted to give presentation and it would be impossible for each of them to go into such details. There was not enough time. Any question? I have a statement to make. A young man stood up. The research result presented by Ruby is not written by herself. It obviously belongs to Professor Dit. Bullsh ***T. A young man stood up and yelled back. Ruby did it all by herself. No, Professor Dit also has the same materials in his hand and it has gone through verification process. The young man retorted back. If it was not because Ruby's presentation was so fast and concise, they would be able to wait for the people to return and showed the result of the verification. He believed that his professor will be able to go back soon. No, Ruby did everything by herself and there's also the research log. You don't think that the security in Cydia base is not good, are you? The young man glared at the person who spoke. Just because you come from the capital city, it doesn't mean that you're better than us. What do you mean? The two people quarreled while Ruby frowned. Professor Dit. It was such a familiar name that made some people recall the day when they entered the crack and had to face with many magic beasts. Because they wanted to do research about the crack, some researchers were stuffed into the exploration team. These researchers were all weak people who couldn't withstand being stimulated and they wanted to be on the front line. How ridiculous. Yet, the proposal was passed and the soldiers had to protect these researchers. Among them, Ruby and Professor Dit were present. For Ruby, she had the confidence to enter because she had the necklace that Ria gave to her along with the fact that Ria was also there. With Ria's strength, it would be a miracle if these magic beasts could bypass her defense and got closer to the researchers. It was also because of this that Ruby dared to step forward. But how about the others? They were underestimating themselves. Even after Ria and Samuel warned about the formation's danger, there was a research assistant from Professor Dit who come forward and triggered the formation. The end result? They were being chased by the magic beasts for who knows how long. Without Ria and Samuel's presence, it was estimated that the entire team would be wiped out at that exact moment. After that incident, Professor Dit was kicked out of Cydia base and sent back to the capital city. This proud man has always said that he came from the capital city and has the superiority that belonged to someone who come from better place. He threw that he's better than the researchers in Cydia base. There was already a conflict between Professor Dit and Professor Brown in the laboratory before. This is the second time. Ruby's eyes flashed with irritation when she looked at these toe people and saw Professor Dit stood up with a confident smile on his face. He had failed once, so he made sure that he came prepared this time. Because he knew that this woman's research was really good and useful, so he had been targeting her. Now it's time. It's my mistake that allows you to be able to see my research result. You have submitted the research paper, but it can still be withdrawn. Professor Dit smiled warmly. If you admit your mistake and withdraw it, I'll not pursue this matter. How arrogant. Amelia, who was sitting on the second floor, didn't expect that there would be someone who dared to scheme against Ruby right in front of their eyes. Did he think that everyone is blind? Ruby will never do this. Ria's eyes were also filled with chills. She hadn't been feeling good when she heard that Sophia was kicked out of Cydia base because of the Carson family. Even though Sophia told her implicitly that this was something her brother had planned early on, she still felt annoyed for not realizing what had happened to Sophia. And now, someone dared to bully Ruby right in front of her. If she did nothing, then she wouldn't be Ria. Calm down. Ruby is calm and should be prepared for this, Samuel said, stopping Ria, who was about to launch her runes and formation towards Professor Dit. He was basically the only person who could possibly stop Ria, because her strength is very strong and there were not many people who could possibly compete with her. On the other side, Arnold also stood up and blocked Amelia, who wanted to jump down. This height was indeed nothing for a magic warrior rank 5 like them, but it would be better for them not to attract the people's attention. Ha! Ria snorted. After this conference is over, if that Professor Dit was still alive, she will cut off a layer of skin from him once more. It was really annoying to have this kind of man coveting Ruby's research all the time. Professor Dit, your words are really laughable. What makes you think that my research is yours? Does your previous attempt to steal my result hadn't made you give up? Ruby spat out, tearing open the previous wound that Professor Dit wanted to hide. Professor Dit's expression twisted for a moment, and then he sneered, ignoring the surprised look of other researchers around him. What are you talking about? I have never done that, and you can't slander me without evidences. What you're doing right now is also a slander, Professor Dit. Ruby walked closer to the edge and looked down at Professor Dit, who was standing there. Her expression was extremely cold and indifferent. After entering workplace, Ruby understood very well that there were people who wanted to gain something without doing anything. These people would take advantage of other people. They could even steal their result. So Ruby has always been very careful in her conduct and research, making sure that she kept everything logged in order to make sure that she would not suffer in the hands of others. Who would have thought that Professor Dit hadn't given up yet? He still wanted to take her research result as his own. How shameless. Does he really think that no one would be able to see the truth just because of his words? I have evidences. The research result in my hand is also more complete, and it's something I have been working on for a long time with my students. Professor Dit raised his chin proudly. His assistant came with a laptop and borrowed the second projector to show the research result that he had written before. And then it was shown on the screen. As you can see, the transmission is better, the capacity is larger, and then Professor Dit proudly explained that his research result is definitely far more mature than Ruby, giving a much reliable impression. Besides, research has always been very rigorous and people would always look towards the better one. For Professor Dit's result that could be said to be extremely dazzling, it was estimated that many people's attention had already been hooked. Ruby looked at the table and sneered. Her expression remained impassive. Even though some people seemed to agree with Professor Dit, but she didn't seem to be able to see it in the slightest bit. Ruby looks really scary right now, Amelia said as she swallowed her saliva. She's not the kind of person who could be easily bullied by others, Ria said as she slowly calmed down. It was then she remembered the live experience of the sixth of them. Ria and Ruby were the poorest among them because the two of them were not favored in their family. Ria's family members have divorced and basically didn't want to take care of her, so she was living alone. Ruby's parents came from relatively poor area, and it was only because of scholarship that Ruby was able to enter the university. Otherwise, her parents would not even let her go. This was also the reason why Ruby always studied hard and everyone joked that she was the most studious one in their group. So while they would escape from Ruby's lecture, none of them would disturb her when she was studying, because they all understood that studying is the means for Ruby to create a better future for herself. Ria herself also studied a lot when she was younger, but not as much as Ruby. Because of the law, her parents still have to pay for child support, which allowed her to have enough pocket money for her project. Otherwise, she would not have succeeded in making that program with her team and then sold it to Samuel's company. They all split the money, which was a few millions. It was quite a lot for them. At least they didn't have to worry about their future lives for a short period of time. If she can escape from that family, how could she not escape from Professor Dit's calculation? Ria calmed down. But even though so, she still raised her finger and completed some runes very easily. Samuel saw the runes entered Professor Dit's body, but there didn't seem to be anything wrong with him. This time he didn't stop Ria. After all, he could guess that Ria should let Ruby deal with Professor Dit herself. And what she did was to vent her anger for her friend in her own way. It would not hinder Ruby's movement. What did you use? Karma-type runes, Ria replied calmly. But only the bad side. Karma usually goes both types. When people do good things, they would be repaid with kindness too, and when they did bad things, they would be repaid with bad things. But the runes that Ria gave, it only gave out the bad ones. She was not kind enough to let Professor Dit be lucky with the good luck from doing good deeds, even though she highly doubted that he would ever do something good. But just in case, because she didn't know personally. Never ever leave any chance for their enemies. Professor Dit might not be her enemies, but he had been making trouble for Ruby several times and Ria couldn't stand him anymore. That's a very convenient runes, Samuel muttered. With this rune, Professor Dit's future life will definitely be very miserable. After all, just because he did something bad, he would suffer bad luck. And Ria didn't have to do anything either. It's not that simple because it used the power of the rules. Ria chuckled. But as long as the power of the rule is not used to do bad things, it should be fine. Once they reached rank 7, the rule's existence could be sensed slowly but surely. Unfortunately, Many magicians would fail to grasp the understanding of these rules, thus blocking their path forward. No matter how much mana they gathered into their body, there was a limit to their body. They had to figure out a path that would allow them to advance. And the rules provided them with this chance as long as they could grasp enough understanding. Samuel's eyes narrowed. Can you make this rune before rank 7? The power of the rule should not be blocked by the amount of mana, because what they used was the power of the world, a higher existence than the mana itself. It was something that many people would not have the chance to touch in their entire life. Yes, Ria admitted calmly. The power of the rule was something that she grasped in her previous life, or it was more like in that world. Before her inevitable death, she came to understand the runes were nothing more than the extension and manifestation of the rules and mana combined together. It was also because of this that people who could learn runes were extremely rare. Because only people who have strong affinity towards the world's rules would be able to understand these runes. And Ria was obviously one of them. Normally speaking, people with great understanding of the rules would have slower time in advancement. Their talent was biased towards the rules' understanding and not in their mana training and meditation. It was also because of this that Ria took a long time to start her practice. But once she reached rank 7, she was immediately exposed to various rules and runes of the world. This greatly increased her understanding of the rules and the path that she was about to take. Every path has its advantage and disadvantage. Being exposed to so many rules, Ria had to understand more than one rule in order to advance as a Runemaster. Because a proper runes and formation above rank 7 would definitely contain more than one rune. And in the midst of this all, her own attack power and comprehensive strength would not increase so much. Without runes, her power would not even be as strong as ordinary mages and warrior. So she had to be able to draw those densely complicated runes and infuse the world law into them in a split second. Many battles ended in just a moment. How could they have time to wait for these rune masters to finish drawing their runes in the air? It was also because of this that many people who pursed the extreme of rune master's path fell in the middle. There was no shortcut like the magicians who could do instant magic spell, as long as they reached a certain point in their strength and mana control. Instead, rune masters' runes and formation will only become more and more complicated and hard to draw. The path forward is difficult. Ria had never heard of any extreme rune masters who walked on this path ever reaching the peak. But this didn't mean that she will give up. Since she had chosen this path, then she will walk on it until the very end. And the power of the rules was something based on understanding instead of her personal strength. It was also because of this that even when she was only rank 1 rune master, Ria could already use the special rune and used it against her father and his wife. She knew the power of this rune, and she limited the strength to make it non-fatal. Because if she borrowed the power of the rule to kill people without her being strong enough, she would experience backlash instead. If she truly wanted to kill people with the power of the rule, she had to wait until she's strong enough. Rank 7. It's only the beginning. Amazing, Samuel muttered and his eyes flashed. He felt that his wife is really good in all aspects, even when she was still so weak. But if she could already use the power of the law at that time, it was estimated that anyone who tried to kill Ria will definitely suffer badly. Even if she was weak, her means was not something that ordinary people could withstand. This was one of the reasons why the returnees were trying not to kill each other and will only beat each other. Once pushed to the end, they wouldn't know what kind of freakish life-saving methods or revenge that these people would have planned. All returnees were basically people with the best potential all over the green planet. This was something that the message, when they reached rank 7, had confirmed. He, she, or even it sent them to that world. And all 12 people were selected carefully. If you have to fight to your death, you have to use up various methods, Ria said lightly, not wanting to expose more. She believed that Samuel himself also has his own life-saving methods that will be activated when he was near death or even upon his death. As for what it is, Ria didn't know. She wouldn't ask either. This was a secret that everyone hid in their hearts and will never tell anyone, no matter who it is. After all, this was their trump card to make sure that those who dared to harm them would not escape unscathed. The returnees were more or less of the same ranks. So if they dared to kill each other, the backup prepared by them would definitely be enough to harm the other party who hurt them fiercely. With all of them being the best in their field, even if it was only relative to the entire green planet, it was more than enough for people to pay attention. A genius who hadn't grown up is nothing, but a genius who had already grown up is the most difficult one to deal with. They have better talent and had reached the height that most people would never be able to reach in their entire life. How could it be easy to deal with them? That's true. Samuel nodded and then stopped asking about this matter. He looked at the people below and saw that Ruby had stepped forward. It's starting. You keep saying that your research result is better than mine, but can you show the process of the experiments from the beginning? Ruby asked calmly and then took out a remote. The Research Institute has the latest technology and had been equipped with so many useful things. Even though Ruby is only Professor Brown's assistant, she also has her own research, and Professor Brown was kind enough to let her apply for more. He was really kind and allowed his student to be creative. Perhaps some of them were really talented like Ruby, but the others were relatively average and their result was not particularly remarkable. Still, the little invention that they made might be useful in the future. After all, it was all about learning, and Professor Brown will not deprive them of their chance to study and learn various new things. Of course. We have the report. Professor Dit sneered. He naturally came prepared this time and would never give Ruby any chance to turn over the humiliation that he suffered from his failed scheme back then. He will make Ruby pay it all back. At this moment, Professor Dit never thought that it was his fault. The other party was only defending her result, and it was obvious that she would never be willing to hand over her research to other people, especially someone like Professor Dit who was not worthy of his title. Coincidentally, I also have it. In that case, let's compare them. The staff quickly stopped these two people from clashing against each other brutally. They didn't want a fight to break out in this place. Professor Dit handed over his report and it was shown through the second projector. On the other hand, Ruby simply took out everything that she had prepared in case someone tried to steal her research's result for the second time. To be honest, Ruby felt somewhat irritable. She had been working well in the laboratory and everything has been going well. There were not many people who liked to trouble others because everyone was focused on achieving result for the sake of the better future. But Professor Dit had to appear at this very moment. How annoying. See? Everything has been written here and I can say for sure that I have the complete evidences of my work. Moreover, the result is extremely better, Professor Dit said proudly. After getting the researcher's experiment example from his assistant whom he asked to help stealing, he sent it to his own team. They worked day and night in order to improve the data and then showed the calculation result. Because Ruby had only finished this research last week, they had to work overtime in order to make it in time for this research conference. Otherwise, it would be too late. Moreover, they had to depart from the capital city to city a base for this to have more impact as Professor Dit wanted to see Ruby fall in person. So they didn't really have time to conduct more experiments. Outrageous! Professor Brown frowned when he saw the data that they presented. On the other hand, Ruby's lips curled up slightly, and she showed the video that she had prepared. It was the experiment process that she had done, including the data that she had written while experimenting. She also put the tables that she wrote. The number was similar, but there were differences, because the number in Professor Dit's report was too beautiful. What outrageous! This is what I have written. The numbers are different. Ruby interrupted Professor Dit because she was too lazy to listen to his quarrel until the end. At the end of the day, they were only barking around because they failed to take this shortcut to success. How ridiculous! Even when people were working for the sake of the better future, all these people cared for is their personal fame and accomplishment. And this had to be built based on other people's hard work. What are they if they were not parasites? Moreover, how can you achieve such a good number in experiments? Don't you know the difference between theoretical possibility and real result? This is all the theoretical possibility that we calculated in advance. Professor Brown added with frown. Theoretical possibility? During research, there will be control group and also calculation that was done in the most optimal state. After all, it was the goal that they wanted to achieve, and based on the best possible state, they would calculate the possible result. Asterisk. It should have been impossible to achieve the same result during the experiment as what was calculated because many times, their experiment's environment could not reach the ideal state. Perhaps the most advanced research institute could do that. But right now, these things almost didn't exist and many places have been destroyed. Even though the government had been funding these researches, it was impossible for them to give everything. They had to focus on the people's livelihood more than these research. Yes, it's important, but if the people couldn't even live, what's the use of these researches' result? In that situation, it was close to impossible to achieve the best result based on the theoretical calculation. We have the best equipment in the research institute and naturally, the result is also the best. Professor Ditt argued. The equipment in the capital city was naturally far better than the equipment in City A base. This is something that Professor Ditt believed in. In that case, do you have temperature compression? Ruby stated series of equipment that she had used for experiments. City A base was extremely prosperous because of Samuel and Ria's action of eliminating many magic beasts. Moreover, they also didn't have to worry about food in the slightest bit because the field has been restored. Other bases were not as lucky as them. The capital city was fine because they had bought those fences and formation from Ria, but many other bases had to buy the food from other bases such as City A base and the capital city. This caused the gap between the bases to get wider and wider. Right now, the situation didn't seem to be obvious. But when Professor Ditt heard the equipment that Ruby used, his expression was blank. He was not the best professor in the entire capital city, so while he had heard of those equipment, he didn't have the qualification to use it. There were many others who could use it, but they didn't come here and only connected through the live broadcast. After all, this is a research conference that was held among several bases, not only City A base and the capital city. There were many people who couldn't come in person and had to use the video call or live broadcast in order to connect. They also have their own research that they wanted to present, and this will definitely take some time. So the research conference was arranged to be held for 7 days. Today is for City A base and the capital city to present their research result, showing off their superiority above other bases. What are those equipments? Amelia had a blank expression when she listened to Ruby listed off so many strange equipment's name that she had never heard in her entire life. This made her doubt her now intelligence. Was she so behind in terms of information? Amelia was confused. Samuel chuckled when he saw his sister's blank look. Most of them are common equipments that are used by researchers in the past. There are only some new ones that have been made. Since you're not in the biology-related department, you might not have heard of it before. Arnold also nodded leisurely. Don't worry about it. As long as the others understand, it's enough. Amelia, you're just short of pointing at me and saying that I'm stupid, right? She rolled her eyes in indignation and turned to look at Ria with puppy eyes. But upon seeing the look on Ria's eyes, she immediately turned around and stifled her laugh. Don't laugh. Ria gritted her teeth. When Ruby started to mention those things, Ria was also confused and even wondered what kind of fairy equipment is that. Each and every single one of them has strange names. There were even equipment that used people's name. It should be the founder or someone who made great contribution. In any case, Ria had no relationship to biology in the past. So when she heard Ruby starting her lecture mode and spat out so many equipment's name, Ria only felt that she was listening to a heavenly script. I thought that with your intelligence, you will be able to know these things, Ria? Amelia teased with a smile. No. Ria shook her head. I don't major in biology, and I haven't entered the laboratory for more than 6 years. There was no more laboratory class in her last semester because she only needed to write her paper. She had already finished the experiments part because of the project in her 7th semester. So the last semester was more or less just Ria lazing around. And after being thrown into that world for 4 years, all of her knowledge has been returned to the teacher. She didn't even remember many things and definitely couldn't replicate what she did in the past anymore. Since she also continued to focus on runes and formation, she didn't have time to study computer and many other things that she used to learn. I forgot that you spent 4 years over there. Amelia shook her head helplessly and patted Ria's shoulder. Ria shrugged and then said, "But it's good that Ruby's equipment are very good." Arnold and Samuel looked at the two people silently. It was not just good. The equipment of the researchers in Cydia Base is basically the best in the entire world right now. Because no other people would be able to support the consumption of these researchers when doing their experiments. Only Cydia Base still has the leisure to do this because of the great improvement that Cydia Base had thanks to Ria and Samuel who have been working hard over the years. Will it be bad if the treatment got exposed to the whole world? Arnold asked quietly. People were not afraid of being poor, but they were afraid of comparison. If everyone was also poor and all, then they would not feel anything. But if their neighbor who used to be in the same situation as them ended up becoming the richest man, it would be difficult for them not to feel the gap. And the current situation was similar. Cydia Base has much better treatment compared to many other bases, allowing these researchers to focus on their work and experiment without the need to worry about anything else. While people in other bases were still struggling to make ends meet. Even though the bases treated them well, but they were lacking in the equipment and so on. Because the bases couldn't give it to them. They were too poor. But Cydia Base could give these researchers almost whatever equipment they wanted since they have excess money. Ria donated a lot of food that she didn't need anymore to them, which was then used by Cydia Base for other things. Of course, Ria also got other things as compensation. It could be said that Samuel was the one who fought the hardest to get benefit for Ria, including handing her various interesting new invention from the Research Institute. It's fine. Samuel shook his head. At most, we'll extend recruitment for the researchers to move to Cydia Base and then negotiate some compensation with their bases. There's still a lot of grain stored in Cydia Base that can be moved. The plant's growth cycle was shortened with the help of the formation that Ria set up. So after expansion and cultivation, Cydia Base basically had too much grain. The grain that was collected before the world changed was basically used to trade for various resources for Cydia Base. His father was really good at this and Samuel let him be. He had no time to care about those things. Good then. Arnold nodded. Since Samuel said that it was fine, then he didn't have to worry and just watch. Anyway, he didn't know much about the Research Institute because his work was not related to it. If anything, he cared more about going out and fighting against the magic beasts. In the hall, Professor Ditt's expression was very bad. What are you talking about? How could it be possible for us to have it? Everyone here used those equipment and the data are obtained through the use of these equipment. As you can see, Ruby showed the video of them using the equipment. There was also Professor Brown there, accompanying his students to help them if necessary. That doesn't prove. If even these equipment couldn't get the theoretical best result, how is it possible for you to achieve these results? Unless it's not the real result. Professor Brown's face was dark as he looked at Professor Ditt. He knew that this professor was unhappy with them, especially after the incident in the laboratory back then. But he never expected that he would try to take his students' research. And this was done more than once. This made Professor Brown so angry. Don't slander. Prove it. Since you can get this result, don't you have the sample? Ruby asked as she took out the samples she had prepared in her space storage scroll. When Ruby used the space storage scroll, other researchers who were watching through the video calls showed the look of envy. Because many of them couldn't afford the space storage scrolls. Only people in the capital city and Cydia Base could get them and handed the access to the Research Institute for them to use. As for them, it was already good enough if they could get enough room for their research. Thankfully, they didn't have any worry about food and so on because the bases still tried their best to make sure that their needs were fulfilled. That, Professor Ditt frowned. How could he forget about this? He turned to look at his student and assistant nearby, but they were all shaking their head with pale face. When they took the copy of the result, they could only take pictures before they had to leave again. Moreover, Ruby would never leave any sample outside and only keep it within her space storage scroll. This kind of thing was basically carried by Ruby almost everywhere. Anyway, she didn't leave the Research Institute in the slightest bit, so there was no need to worry about it being found by others because of some reasons. If you can't, you should be the one to stop slandering. No, it can't be. I'm the one who's right. Upon seeing Professor Ditt's face, everyone understood that he didn't have any samples and only these research report. In other case, it might be fraud. Liar! Take them out. No, you can't do this. Ruby watched coldly as Professor Ditt was taken out and she rubbed her forehead in annoyance. Having someone like this watching over them all the time was really suffocating. If possible, Ruby didn't want to see him anymore. Plagiarism is a serious violation of the research code, Professor Brown said slowly. He'll not be able to do any research anymore and possibly even be jailed. Is it useful to go to jail at this period of time? Ruby asked back. Her tone sounded helpless. Some people might even want to go to jail because they could get a place to sleep, food, and drinks when they were in jail. If they were outside, they would just be homeless people who didn't have anything. After all, in many bases, there were too many people who couldn't afford a living. They were afraid of going out and meet those magic beasts, but they were not capable enough to do most works. So they ended up becoming a homeless and jobless people. It was also because of this that a base simply kicked people who didn't want to work in the slightest bit out of the base. They didn't have time to care for people who didn't even want to work for themselves. He's a proud person, Professor Brown said with a smile. Ruby was stunned for a moment before she nodded in understanding. After the farce with Professor Ditt and his assistants who made trouble, Ruby continued her presentation calmly. The other assistant professor under Professor Ditt also went up and started their presentation. Their result might not be as outstanding as Ruby, but it would be quite useful for various things in daily lives in the future. The presentation was paused in the afternoon for lunch break. At this time, Ruby went up to see Amelia and Ria. You're superb, Ruby. But can I not come to see again next time? Amelia asked with sheepish grin. She almost fell asleep after Ruby's turn because she couldn't understand these researchers' words. It was already good enough for her not to fall asleep in the middle and persist until the very end. Ruby chuckled when she heard that and said, It's fine. I'll still listen the rest of the research conference, but you might have something else to do later. What do you think of what I made? It's good. Amelia could only say that. Ruby rolled her eyes when she heard Amelia's answer. As expected, she shouldn't expect anything from this pampered young miss. Amelia truly didn't know anything and couldn't be depended on. She turned her head to look at Ria. While Ria didn't have the same professional knowledge as her, it should be possible for her to understand more about the importance of the mana storage materials that she researched. Up to rank 5 energy is pretty good, but you might want to increase the storage or let the team design one that could store more than one of these, Ria said. While it seems that the mana is a lot, it's not even enough to activate the formation outside. Moreover, there are more than enough methods that could be used to extract the mana directly from the magic core. Yes, through the runes. However, if there were no rune masters, it'll be difficult for us to keep it. And with this, I can store the mana from several lower-ranked magic cores. When Ria heard what Ruby said, she understood. The main use of the materials and equipment that Ruby designed and researched was to extract the mana from lower-ranked magic cores faster. After all, if they have to ask the Runemaster to draw one by one, it would be very tiring. Right now, most people were only rank 1 Runemasters and there were more than enough people who were training, so they would not lack materials. But as time passed and these people's ranks become higher and higher, how could they be willing to use the lower-ranked magic cores all the time? Besides, the materials that Ruby used could also be charged by humans' mana directly. In this way, it could ensure sustainable development even when the magic beasts no longer existed in the future. You're amazing, Ruby. Ria chuckled. Ruby smiled brightly. After that, Ria gave a few other suggestions and even left behind some runes drawings that might be useful for her. Of course, the ranks of the runes were not that high, only between rank 2 to rank 3. You can contact Ruben for help directly. He can already make those runes and this can be regarded as practice for him, Ria finally said. Got it. Amelia laughed out loud on the side. I feel that Ruben will be very happy because his teacher is giving him more work. Ria, tell the truth. Why do you and Samuel really love to exploit Ruben? One of them was teaching Reuben so many runes and even gave countless tasks for him to make various magic scrolls. The variety of the magic scrolls alone gave Amelia a scare, especially when Reuben introduced it with dark circle under his eyes. After all the work as Runemaster, Reuben still has to work as Samuel's assistant to help with various management and so on. Lastly, he was also a magician and had to train his magic skills. When Amelia heard the things that Reuben had to do, she even looked up at him. This man is truly a time management master. Aside from the fact that he had permanent dark circles around his eyes, he was really amazing. Thankfully, he's a magician and his body had been strengthened to a certain degree, so the dark circles were not so obvious unless he had just pulled an all-nighter. He's the one who wants to learn. Rhea shrugged. I never told him to learn instantly, and instead let him arrange his own time. To be honest, Reuben's talent as Runemaster was not that high. It was still pretty good compared to most people, but it was definitely far from the level of a genius. Thankfully, he still has some talent or he would need even more time to learn it. But Reuben is very hardworking and Rhea basically gave him all that he needed to learn in the early stage easily. As long as he could memorize and replicate those runes, he would definitely get an early lead as Runemasters. It was through this way that Reuben was able to gain the lead above the other Runemasters from the capital city. He has a generous teacher. As for how good her teaching is, well, it was acceptable. Rhea couldn't really boast how good her teaching is because she basically let Reuben learn by himself after throwing the teaching materials. Stephen was even worse because she only told him the magic spells and the mana fluctuation before kicking him out. She barely taught them personally. They're all not human being, Amelia muttered. Amelia felt that everyone around her was simply not a human being. Her brother loves to train with Rhea and had long reached rank 7 far ahead from others. Arnold was also training hard and was still ahead of her even though her talent was very good and she improved quickly. Ruby was able to research many useful things and presumably would become the pillar in the research's world. And now there was also Reuben who could do so many things and didn't seem to be tired from running around every day. Rhea didn't need to be said as Amelia had never seen Rhea didn't work hard to meditate and made a lot of magic scrolls and other things. How about the others? Thinking about Sophia and Stephen who didn't seem to be that bad, Amelia was silent for a moment. Why does it seem that she's the worst among them all? Especially because she's also the laziest one. Cough. Rhea rolled her eyes and knocked on Amelia's forehead. Stop thinking too much and just live your own life. How others want to do it is not our business. Whether they wanted to be strong, waste their own time, or other things, it was not something they had to concern themselves about. Living was already very difficult and they only needed to focus on their own lives without the need to worry about other people. Or rather, they would not meddle in other people's business. Ouch! You're not others, Amelia complained. Rhea chuckled and shook her head. Forget it. Samuel saw these two people playing around and felt that they were really idle. He felt his phone vibrated and checked it. Seeing that it was a message from his father, he sighed deeply. Rhea, there's another mission. Huh? Rhea was stunned. They have just finished dealing with those magic beasts and now there was another mission? She felt that the world was full of malice right now. Did something happen again? Couldn't be those magic beasts run out of the cracks, right? There were already a total of 7 rank 7 returnees and the rest should be already at rank 6. Even at the lowest, they would be rank 5 along with many other people who were also training in their respective profession. If there were many magic beasts around, these people could step forward from the very beginning and deal with them without the need for Rhea to come. No, there's a meeting. Rhea. Meeting? She stood up speechlessly. Why do I have to participate in the meeting? You know my talent in negotiation and business is not very good. Even though City Abbase had never mistreated her, it was Samuel who usually fought for more and pushed the government to give more resources for them. Through this method, Samuel could earn the difference and Rhea could also get the resources that she needed. It was a good cooperation for both of them. Yes, but there are some things that only Runemaster could do, so we need you to attend, Samuel replied. Rhea is the highest-ranked Runemaster in the entire Green Planet. If they wanted to do this right, she had to be the one to step forward instead of other people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to finish the meeting. Ria sighed deeply and could only nod her head. It seemed that her dream of taking more break before it was time to depart to the crack was gone. Once the meeting is over, I'll just head over to the crack. She didn't want to be involved in various political schemes or something like that. It would be too tiring. Her poor brain really couldn't withstand being bombarded with this kind of thing, and Ria also didn't want to be so tired. It's better for her to just go out and fight with those magic beasts. At least, she didn't have to deal with annoying schemes or something like that when she was busy fighting. I hope they wouldn't ask for anything excessive, Ria muttered as she walked out with Samuel. They wouldn't dare, Samuel sneered. If those people dared to ask for anything excessive from them, he would teach them a lesson they would never forget in their entire life. It was absolutely impossible for him to let the two of them be taken advantage of by other people, especially those government. Aside from Mr. A, whom he knew could be trusted, many others were a bit annoying. He didn't want to have any dealings with them. The two of them walked out of the private room and Ruby sighed. It seems that we can't spend much time together. Ruby herself rarely had break time after she arranged her schedule in the research institute. She would be busy with various research from morning to night time, making use of her time to the limit. Besides, she didn't want to give up without seeing the result from her research. This resulted in her spending most of her time in the laboratory. On the other hand, Ria was too busy going far away from City A base to deal with stronger magic beasts. The magic beasts around this area could no longer satisfy her, and it was basically impossible for them to restrain her. Only if the magic beasts' number all over the world decreased would it be possible for the green planet to be safer. So no one had any reason to stop Ria. In the end, the girls didn't have much time to gather together with each other anymore. They could only see each other from time to time, each time only spending a short few minutes to hours. Don't worry. There will be chance to meet with each other again in the future, Amelia consoled Ruby. I'm not that sad. Ruby was amused. Knowing you all doing well outside is good enough. Everyone had their own lives to life. They could gather from time to time, but most of the time, they would be busy doing other things and so on. Amelia chuckled. The two girls chatted with each other until it was time for the presentation again. Ruby went to her teacher and her colleagues while Amelia slipped out with Arnold accompanying her. Are you not going to stay and watch the next presentation? Arnold asked in teasing tone. Amelia rolled her eyes. I'm not stupid enough to stay behind and watch over those things when I can't even understand any of them. It would be a waste of time. For them right now, they should seize the time and train themselves so that they could get stronger and stronger. Otherwise, when the magic beasts came, they would be unprepared and ended up putting themselves in danger. None of them would want something like this, so they had to train hard. Let's go. Arnold smiled. Yes. While Amelia and Arnold left, Ruby was staying behind in the research institute and listened to the presentation from other people with interest. Many of them presented ideas that she could never think of in her entire life. Even though she had no intention of stealing other people's hard work, they could still learn from each other. Because only by breaking through one's limitation and learned many other things would it be possible for them to grow stronger and have more knowledge. Limiting themselves to the small topic would lead them nowhere. It's really great. When the presentation was done for the day, Ruby sighed to herself. She still felt dissatisfied. There were so many things that she had learned in a single day that she hoped that she could stay and listen for more. Unfortunately, the researchers were tired, and there would still be other presentation tomorrow, so they should curb their curiosity for the time being. Miss Ruby, there are people outside who claim to be your family members and want to see you, a security guard said. Family members? Ruby was stunned when she heard that, and her expression turned a bit strange. Ever since the earthquake happened more than a year ago, Ruby had never heard from her so-called family members anymore. After all, everyone was busy fleeing for their lives and seemed not to care about other people. She did try to inquire about her parents, but seeing that they were living well in City A base and didn't seem to be thinking of finding her, Ruby chose not to go to them. Besides, Ruby could still remember the conflicts she had with her family members in the past. She wanted to study. For that, She worked hard until she could get scholarship and attended the university without the need to burden her family members. But some of the relatives were still unwilling. They felt that Ruby was not worthy, and that the money should have been used to make their lives better instead of being used in such a place. Because of this, she almost wanted to run away from home. And the relationship between her and her parents were not very good, which made Ruby spend most of her time in the dormitory instead of coming back home. She didn't want to see them if possible. "Can I see what they look like?" Ruby asked. Yes. She was given a tablet and could see her parent and siblings were there. They looked like they had the right to come here and acted so arrogant. Ruby's fingers clenched to form a fist. All of her hard work was not for them to claim it as theirs and trampled on what she had been working on for so many years. Is it really the children's duty to take care of their parents? Ruby whispered in a low voice and took a deep breath. She didn't want to see them, but she knew that she had to. And the moment she appeared in front of these people, Ruby heard her mother's scolding as she had expected. "You unfilial girl. You have been living well in the past few months, and you have never even told us anything about this. If it's not because of—" Even her father was giving her the look of reproach. Ruby looked at her parents, who looked so indignant, and asked, "When you first come here, why did you not try to look for me?" Ruby's mother paused for a moment and then snorted. "Don't try to change the conversation. It's not important. It's important." Ruby raised her voice and looked at her parents with a look of disappointment. "You have been living well and never thought of finding me. Now, you suddenly look for me. What do you actually want to do?" If this was in the past, Ruby would never dare to confront her parents head-on because she was afraid that they would make things difficult for her. But now, she didn't want to listen to their words all the time and could only be forced to obey their arrangement. "We try to look for you." "No, you don't." Ruby looked at her father. "Don't try to distort the facts. I have evidences that you don't care about my life and death with you doing that. Do you really expect me to be obedient to you?" "You!" Bang! The guard stopped Ruby's father from hurting her. Seeing the cold and indifferent look on Ruby's face, Ruby's father's expression changed. "No, you can't do this. You're our daughter and it's your obligation to care for us." After enough scolding, Ruby glanced over at her guard and said, "I'll transfer living expense to them every month, a total of 100 contribution points. That's all, and there's nothing more." "Ruby, I have fulfilled my obligation as a daughter to you with this. Isn't this what you want when you come here?" Ruby asked back and then walked out without hesitation. Anyway, she couldn't fight with force and there were more than enough guards in the research institute. It was good that these people would listen to her words and would block her so-called family members from causing more troubles for her. Screams and yells could be heard from outside. Ruby stood beside the window, watching the guards toss them out, and there was no emotional fluctuation in her heart. Perhaps compared to her friends, she was the one with the coldest and cruelest heart. Because once someone dared to offend her, then she would never be willing to let them get close to her in the slightest bit. But she will not try to make trouble for them first because such a thing was really unnecessary. It was just, she didn't want to be dragged down by her uncaring family members who only cared for profit and would push her down when things become difficult. This action might look cold-blooded, but Ruby didn't want to have any interaction with her family members anymore. She will fulfill her obligation to provide for them, but that would be all. She had no interest in deepening the relationship or destroying the already fragile relationship either. They wouldn't be able to come here anymore. Ruben came in while holding his phone. After the meeting with Samuel and the others, he received message from Ruby, asking for help. The guards and the staffs in the research institute wouldn't be able to completely restrain her greedy family members. So she had to look for someone else who could possibly do this. And Ruben's name came to her mind, especially after Amelia joked about him some time ago. He's really capable. And it was also because of this that Ruby trusted the other party. "Thank you very much," Ruby said sincerely. She didn't actually have that much power and everything came from her status as researcher and friends of Amelia and Ria. Because she didn't want to lag behind them so much, she had to work hard on the field that she's good at and also liked very much. If she was asked to follow them as a magician, magic warrior, or the likes, Ruby was absolutely sure that she wouldn't be able to catch up with them. She was really bad at sports. And when she meditated, Ruby took an extremely long time to be able to detect the mana's presence. Through these things, Ruby was sure that her own talent was actually not very good and it would take her a long time to catch up with the others. So she chose to focus on research. In the first place, she liked doing research so much that she didn't have many friends around her. Because they felt that they couldn't talk with her, and from time to time, she would forget that those people couldn't understand what she was talking about and continued to talk about her research result. Before she knew it, she was often alone. It was only after university that she met with Sophia, who was a proud young miss from the Carson family and made trouble. Well, her first impression of the other party was how lazy she is. But Sophia could be said to be the first person who would still accompany her and tried to listen to her lecture, even if she ended up falling asleep in the middle. Through Sophia, Ruby was able to meet with Amelia, Ria, and the other two. And now, she could meet with many other powerful and capable people. Ruby felt that she's really lucky, so she will work even harder and create more useful things for the sake of their future. It's nothing much, Ruben chuckled. And my teacher told me that you have some runes I need to make? Ah, right. Here you go. It's not that difficult, but it'll cost a lot of mana, so I can't make them all at the same time. How about if I make them based on priority? Sure. Can you tell me how do you plan to arrange it? Without the need to worry about her family members anymore, Ruby started her working mode and discussed the runes matter with Ruben. He was also patiently explaining the runes to Ruby. After all, he was also a Runemaster in his side profession while his main profession is a magician. In this conversation, Ruben also managed to know what Ruby was planning to make. This made him very interested. Samuel and Ria's side. The two people left the research institute and headed to Mr. Jones' office. To be honest, Samuel had already explained to his father that they wouldn't be working today, but it seemed that there was an emergency. Otherwise, Mr. Jones wouldn't interrupt them. After all, he himself knew that he should let the two of them spend more time with each other so that they could cultivate better relationship. Besides, being a light bulb didn't seem to be a good idea. "Father," Samuel called out when he came into his father's office. There was only his father's assistant there. "Where's my father?" "Mr. Jones is in the conference hall." Samuel nodded and held Ria's hand as he brought her to the conference room not far from his father's office. Through his senses, he could already sense that there were a lot of people there. Some people from the military and officials came here. They should have arrived along with the researchers who came from the capital city some time ago. "Knock! Knock! Father! Samuel, Ria! You two are here." Mr. Jones looked relieved when he saw the two of them. They were basically the real backbone of the entire city base, and without them, Mr. Jones wouldn't be able to do anything. "Is there anything wrong?" Samuel asked with frown. "There are requests from Continent W and Continent Y. The one from Continent W requested for the returnees to cooperate together and explore the crack on their side. Their returnees are not very convenient in terms of blocking the attack," Mr. Jones said euphemistically. In fact, it was not really a secret that the returnee from Continent W were an alchemist and an archer magic warrior.